and welcome to the Brazilian BA Guest. We are here every week with a different authority on business analysis to share some interesting thoughts with you. If you are not yet subscribed to this channel, please subscribe it and click on the bell. Today, I have a very special author of several books with me. This guy is Scott Embler. Hello, Scott. Thank you for coming.
Hi. Yeah, thanks for having me here. It's great to be here.
It's an honor. Scott, I do have a question for you today. My question is, what is the career path for a business analyst in the agile world?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love answering questions like this. So the first answer is, of course, it depends, and it depends on what you want to do. So where do you want to go with your career? And if you don't know that, then you're going to end up somewhere I don't know where. But anyways, so let's assume that you've got a pretty good idea what you want to do. There's many opportunities. So when I talk to people about these sorts of things, one of the things I always point out about Agile is that regardless of where you're coming from, there's always room for you. Now, you might have to change a bit, you might have to learn and be flexible, but there's always room. And for a BA, there's a lot of room, and you've got choices, which can be frustrating. So, some people like just to be told what to do. A lot of people like to be given choices. So, what are your choices? Is a good question. So, the first one is if you want to stay focused on being a BA, then what I find is that people in the product owner role desperately need BA skills, and they need help from people with BA skills, because usually the work of a product owner is far more than 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. It's more than a full-time job, so they need assistance. And this is particularly true in very complex domains and when you have geographically distributed stakeholders, right? Because the product owner needs to represent the needs of the stakeholders to the team that's working on whatever it is that they're developing to solve the needs of the stakeholders. So, and the product owner needs to represent the work of the team to the stakeholders as well. So they're acting as a go-between, very similar to what a BA does. So anyways, product owners almost always need assistance from people with business analysis skills. So there's an opportunity there. Now, in some organizations, this role will be called a business analyst or business system analyst or an agile business analyst. It's pretty easy to throw agile on the front of that, or it might be called a junior product owner or a local product owner. So different. Same basic idea, but a lot of different titles. So that's one option. Another option.
Let me just add a question about this first option. I always see the difference. Because you said the product owner and the business analyst are very similar in what they do. I see that the main difference between a product owner and a business analyst is that the product owner have the authority to take decisions, while the business analyst is an analyst. He's doing analysis. But it's hard to analyze everything that's necessary to create a product. So a business analyst should or could help the product owner doing the analysis and creating recommendations for that. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you can look at that role as assisting the product owner, and that is absolutely valuable, because look at it from the point of view of the product owner. They're expected to know everything about the domain, know all the people, be able to prioritize. They got a lot on their plates. There's no possible way you can do that in a reasonably complicated project or team. So they need help. So there's roles there for the business analyst. Plus two, another good option for an existing BA is to become a product owner. So by assisting an existing product owner, you can start picking up product owner skills. They can take you under their wing and guide you along, because I'm a firm believer that everybody should be grooming or training their replacements. If I'm a product owner, I should be bringing up more product owners. So, and BAs are very good options for that. And being a product owner is a very interesting role. You get to be a decision maker. You get to do really valuable stuff and be seen to do very valuable stuff. So there's a lot of opportunity there. So I've seen a lot of BAs shift into that role, and exactly as you say, the way I've always described product owner or at least at a very quick overview, is a product owner is a BA with decision-making authority, but without some of the bureaucracy that you see in the traditional BA world. So one of the challenges for a BA, like a traditional BA at least, moving into the agile world, is to give up on some of the documentation. And good BAs already want to do that anyways, right? So you want to have any documentation should be concise, should be valuable, all that good sort of stuff. Exactly what we talk about in the agile modeling world. And so the thing is that, but there's also other skills that a BA might want to pick up. So for example, learning how to do acceptance test driven development or behavior driven development, whatever you want to call that. There's slight nuances between those two, but I'm not that worried about that. So I'm really not. It's like arguing about how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. Yeah, it's interesting, but it doesn't really, it doesn't pass through care stuff. So anyways, but so learning how to do acceptance test driven development or behavior driven development, whatever you want to call that, is a critical skill if you're going to be involved with more advanced agile teams, because they really do want to skip over the detailed documentation and go straight to executable code. And that's what the ATD is all about from a requirements point of view. And then the third, go ahead.
Yes, probably you are going to talk about that. I'll just give you the hint for that. But some of the business analysts are not working just in a product development team or in this horizon of the delivery, but they're in a more strategic horizon, like looking for a strategic business analyst helping organizations to do strategic planning or to think about what products should we be building or what customer should we be working on, what's our business architecture. For those kind of BAs, what is the career path for them in an agile world? What is there for them?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So in that case, they're probably working with product managers, supporting the product managers as they would have, at that level, rather than supporting product owners at the team level, or working with business architects, as you were implying. So, but it's in the strategy world, it's a different, or the high level product management world, it's also a different beast. You want to be running experiments on a regular basis. So creating, minimal viable products, for example, or exploring what's known as minimum business increments. So identifying what's the smallest chunk of value that we could deliver, that a team could deliver to the marketplace to support their customers. And then so defining that MBI, the minimum business increment, also sometimes called a minimal, I don't remember now, a minimal marketable product, or minimal marketable feature perhaps, but sort of questionable terminology. But anyways, this minimum business increment really is, it really does need to be reasonably defined so that way it can be passed down to the product owner, who then explores it better and then the team implements it. So there's value, there's a role there, but then again, once again, that's a different set of skills, right? It'll be more, let's identify a potential MVP. Let's run an experiment in the marketplace with an MVP, and then gather some data, act on that data, evolve it a few times until finally we get an idea what the customer actually wants. So that's more an analysis, strategic thinking, implementation thing, rather than just a pure analysis thing. So once again, which is a great role. A lot of value to be generated there, and a lot of fun usually.
And in this case, as a career path, do you see that a BA should look for a project manager role, or should then look for another kind of role, like trying to be an executive? Well, you started very well when you said that Alice's Wonderland Cats thought, if you don't know where you want to go, every path is the right path. I like that. But what would be the best options for a BA that wants to grow in your career?
Yeah, so you could start. One option would be BA to PO to product manager, or BA to supporting a product manager in some sort of experimentation role, to product manager, or to strategy strategy person. Another option could be that I've seen is BA to team lead. So in Discipline Agile, we talk about team lead being a meta role, because different types of teams have different types of leads. So a Scrum team perhaps is a Scrum Master, a senior Scrum Master. A project team has a project manager. A marketing team has a marketing manager, and so on. So if you're in a reasonably interesting role like BA, you could decide, I want to work my way up the hierarchy and become a team lead. So depending on the type of team you're currently in, you would work towards being that type of lead. So if you're on a project team, maybe you'd work towards becoming a project manager. If you're on supporting a marketing team, maybe you'd work your way towards being a marketing manager, and so on. So that's the basic idea there. So it's it really depends on what you want to do, and then start working your way towards that.
Right. Just to end this chat, I know you're the chief leader on the Discipline and Agile at PMI, and I would like you just to introduce very fastly for those who are here who have an interest in on that, and how could BAs work with that, and where can they find more information about it?
Yeah, so Discipline Agile is a toolkit. It's not a framework. So where Scrum and SAFe and LeSS and others are methods or frameworks, whatever you want to call that, they tend to be prescriptive. They have one way of doing things, and they tell you these are our best practices, and go forth and do that. In DA, we're a bit more robust than that, because we realize that you're unique, your team is unique, your organization is unique. Therefore, you really need a fit for purpose approach. And as a result, instead of telling you what to do, we tell you what to think about. You need to think about these issues. So for example, we explicitly have what we call a process goal called Explore Scope, which is basically about business analysis when it gets down to it. We have an explicit process blade called Product Management, which is for the most part about exploring scope at the product level, and of course implementing, and there's a bunch of other things to product management, of course. But so we tell you, here's what you need to, here's the issues you need to think about. So for example, when it comes to exploring scope, how are we going to explore usage? How are we going to explore business processes? How are we going to explore the data? How are we going to explore non-functional requirements, and so on? And then we give you a collection of options. So where the frameworks might tell you, well, we're agile, therefore go off and write user stories and epics, and maybe have a user story map or some sort of business canvas. We instead give you 50 or 60 options, and we help you choose between them, because different types of problems are addressed by different types of models and different types of techniques, which is exactly what the IIBA teaches you to do, right? If you look at the BA box, there's a big pile of techniques in there that you can choose from, and use the right technique in the right situation. And this is exactly what we do in DA, right? But we put things in a context. So we don't believe in best practices. I've never found a best practice. I've been looking for over 3 decades. I've never ever found a best practice. All practices have advantages and disadvantages. So
a best practice must have a context to be called best, right?
Exactly. Yeah, some things work very well in certain contexts and are a spectacularly bad idea in others. So if you're not taking a context-based approach, you just aren't getting it. So if you're looking for some, tell me the 10 best practices or the 10 best techniques that like the methods tell you about, that's just naive, right? That, that works in some situations, but it doesn't work in all situations. You've got to choose your way of working, and you've got to evolve your way of working as the situation changes. This is what real professionals do.
Great. Where can people find the information about the Discipline and Agile?
Yeah, so the Discipline Agile Toolkit comes from PMI. So if you go to pmi.org /disciplined agile with a hyphen between disciplined and agile, you'll get to the hub. But if you go to pmi.org and just do a search on Discipline,
I'll put the address here below this video if someone just want to click
fantastic.
it. I think it's good for now. Scott, thank you very much for coming. It was a pleasure and an honor to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I want to say I love Brazil. It's one of my favorite countries, and I want to give a shout out to the Flamingos in Rio. That's my football team.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Flamingos.